Urgent question. Hook. Imagine a world where your city is underwater. Not in a disaster movie, but in our very near future. This isn't a distant, abstract threat. It's a potential reality etched into the physics of our planet. What if every glacier, every ice cap on Earth simply vanished? From the colossal ice sheets of Antarctica and Greenland, which together hold over 99% of the world's freshwater ice, to the thousands of mountain glaciers that act as frozen reservoirs for entire continents. The maps you know, the cities you love, gone. Sea level rise is driven by two primary forces: the thermal expansion of warming ocean water and the addition of new water from melting ice. While thermal expansion is already underway, the complete melting of all land-based ice represents the ultimate catastrophic endpoint. This isn't science fiction, it's a visualization of what happens when the ice melts. A journey into a world transformed. Shocking revelation. Hook, prepare for a future you never thought possible. A future where the very geography of our planet is rewritten. We've mapped the cities that disappear, the millions displaced, and the ecosystems erased if all the world's ice melts. We will trace the cascading consequences, from the coastlines to the heartlands. The planet would be reshaped beyond recognition, and today, you'll see exactly how. Call to action, intriguing premise. Hook. Could humanity survive a world without ice? This isn't just about rising seas, it's about a complete planetary transformation. A fundamental shift in the systems that have supported civilization for millennia. Join us as we visualize a future where coastlines are redrawn, nations vanish, and Earth becomes unrecognizable. Ice is Earth's silent guardian. A vast, frozen library holding the history of our climate in its layers. Covering nearly 10% of the planet's land surface, glaciers and ice sheets store over 2/3 of the world's fresh water. The Antarctic ice sheet alone is a continent of ice, in some places nearly 5 kilometers thick. They regulate global temperatures, reflecting sunlight back into space. This phenomenon, known as the albedo effect, makes the polar regions act as the planet's air conditioning system. They stabilize oceans, drive weather patterns, and support ecosystems found nowhere else on Earth. The cold, dense meltwater that sinks at the poles is a critical engine for global ocean currents, distributing heat and nutrients around the globe. But this frozen watchtower is failing. Its ancient equilibrium, maintained for thousands of years, is now being rapidly undone. Greenland and Antarctica are losing ice 6 times faster than they were just decades ago. Hundreds of billions of tons of ice now vanish every single year. Mountain glaciers, from the Himalayas to the Andes, are shrinking year by year. These water towers, for nearly 2 billion people, are disappearing, threatening water supplies from Asia to South America. If all this ice were to melt completely, global sea levels wouldn't rise by meters, but by over 65 meters. That's more than 216 feet. A change of this magnitude would not just alter our world, it would create a new one, and that changes everything. As the oceans rise, coastlines retreat, first slowly, then with alarming speed, then collapse. New York City disappears beneath the Atlantic. The entire eastern seaboard of the United States is inundated. Florida is erased from the map, and the Gulf Coast is pushed hundreds of miles inland. London becomes an island ruin. In Europe, the Netherlands and most of Denmark are lost to the North Sea. Venice, a city already fighting the water, sinks forever, while a new sea floods the Po Valley in Italy. Shanghai, Mumbai, Tokyo, gone. Across Asia, coastal megacities housing hundreds of millions are swallowed. In Africa, the ancient city of Alexandria is lost, and Lagos, Nigeria's economic heart, is submerged. Entire countries vanish: the Maldives, the Marshall Islands, Kiribati, Tuvalu. Their cultures, their histories, their very existence wiped from the globe. Large portions of Bangladesh and Vietnam. The fertile deltas that feed hundreds of millions become part of the Bay of Bengal and the South China Sea. Low-lying regions fracture into scattered archipelagos. Australia loses a vast coastal strip where most of its population lives, creating a new inland sea. South America sees Buenos Aires and coastal Uruguay disappear beneath the waves. What was once dry land becomes ocean floor. What was once coastline becomes memory. Over 1 billion people would be forced to flee inland, triggering the largest displacement in human history. This isn't just moving houses, it's the collapse of communities, economies, and nations. The damage doesn't stop at the coast. The rising seas are a poison that spreads inland. Salt water seeps into freshwater aquifers, poisoning drinking supplies for hundreds of millions who remain. Coastal ecosystems like wetlands and mangrove forests, which act as natural barriers against storms, are drowned and destroyed, leaving inland areas even more vulnerable. Agricultural land becomes unusable, threatening global food systems. River deltas, the breadbaskets for entire nations, become saline wastelands. The volatility of drought and flood cycles intensifies, making consistent farming impossible. Coral reefs, already struggling, collapse entirely as warmer, deeper oceans suffocate marine life. The same carbon dioxide driving the warming also increases ocean acidity, dissolving the very skeletons that build the reefs. These reefs support 25% of all ocean species. Their loss would ripple through the entire food chain. In the newly expanded polar oceans, ecosystems built on sea ice disappear. The foundation of the polar food web, from krill to whales, disintegrates. On land, climate patterns unravel. The loss of the polar temperature gradient fundamentally alters the jet streams. Rainfall shifts. Some regions flood endlessly. Others dry into desert. The Amazon rainforest, deprived of its usual weather patterns, could cross a tipping point into a dry savanna. Forests burn. Species vanish. The planet enters a mass extinction driven not by impact, but by imbalance. An imbalance we created. As coastlines vanish, borders lose meaning. The very concept of the nation-state is challenged when its territory disappears. Ports, power plants, financial centers, destroyed. The economic toll is incalculable, trillions upon trillions in lost infrastructure and assets. The global insurance industry would have collapsed long before this point. Global trade routes collapse, then reform in unfamiliar ways. New shipping lanes open across a once frozen Arctic, but the ports they once connected are now underwater. Nations compete for remaining fertile land, freshwater access, newly exposed resources in polar regions. Climate migration strains governments to breaking points. The humanitarian crisis would be permanent and overwhelming, creating unprecedented social and political stress. International cooperation weakens. Faced with existential threats at home, nations may turn inward, hoarding resources and closing borders. Conflict becomes more likely, not over ideology, but survival. The world doesn't just get warmer, it becomes more unstable, more unpredictable, more dangerous. A world without ice would take centuries to unfold, but the path toward it is being shaped right now. The decisions we make in this decade, in this century, will determine how much of this future comes to pass. This future is not inevitable, it is a warning: rapid decarbonization. This is the most critical lever. It means transforming our energy systems, shifting from fossil fuels to wind, solar, and other clean sources. It means electrifying our transportation and reinventing our industries. Clean energy transitions, protecting forests and oceans. These are our greatest natural allies. Healthy ecosystems absorb vast amounts of carbon. Reforestation and restoring coastal habitats like mangroves are powerful, nature-based solutions. Rethinking how and where we build our cities. Adaptation is no longer optional. This includes building smarter coastal defenses, but also accepting the need for managed retreat from the most vulnerable areas. Every fraction of a degree matters. The difference between 1.5 degrees of warming and 2 degrees is measured in tens of millions of displaced people and the survival of entire ecosystems. Every year matters. The sooner we act, the more of our world we can preserve. Delay locks in more warming, more melting, and a more difficult future. The ice is not just frozen water. It is a record of our past, a regulator of our present, and a crucial buffer for our future. It's a boundary between stability and chaos, a line drawn by nature that we are now threatening to erase. What happens next depends on us, on our choices, our innovations, and our collective will. Closing line. The question isn't what if all the world's ice melted. The real question is, how much will we choose to save?